Okay, we're out here doing sciencey things. Herbicide's starting to go to work out here. Most of the grass is starting to curl over. This got sprayed Sunday like noon. So by the end of the week, everything ought to be dead, I'd say. But anyhow, this field I'm gonna pull soil samples on, which needed done anyhow. I was gonna wait till this fall, but might as well get them done now since we're seeing some sort of issue going on here. And I'm gonna pull, like I said, plant tissue samples. How this is gonna work, I'm doing this a little different than normal. From the bottom of the hill down and around through there, this whole area, this soil type is more in common with the back. And then that hill and the little triangle back behind that house are more sandy, so I'm going to do this, and the back field is one soil sample, and then that sand hill and that triangle field is one soil sample. And then we're going to pull some good healthy corn plants and some corn plants that are displaying signs of nutrient deficiency, whatever nutrient deficiency it may be. Pretty sure it's potassium. Although this stuff is looking a little greener than it was when I came over here the other day and sprayed. So it might come out of it on its own, it might not. If it won't come out of it on its own, I want to have a game plan to help it along. That's why we're doing this. It's cheap, it's good insurance. The soil tests need done anyway, so that I know what I'm working with. And the tissue samples, you stack all three of them together. Good tissue, bad tissue, soil test. That gives you a good picture of what this field is. So anyhow, I guess for starters, since most of the bad corn plants are down here, I'll just walk it. So that's the one I want for that. And we're just going to kind of go around. I'm going to get some out of this spot, get some from over there on the other side, because this kind of wraps around the front of this sand hill. So, but we just stay. It's not going to stay. These are young enough, you almost need a whole plant sample, so you pluck it out. Like so. When corn plants get bigger, you can just sample individual leaves, but since these are so small, you got to take a whole plant so that they got enough to work with. So I'm just going to go around and do that and fill this little bag here up. Alright, so I got a bag full of bad plants and a bag full of good plants so that we got a good comparison. And I tried to pull the good plant from the same general area. That way you got a side by side. So now we just got to pull some soil samples. Like I say, this front part of the field, actually this is, and I don't need to go the full depth of the probe because this, I don't know why this probe is so long, but I only need to go about 8 inches in. I like the probes my boss has got. I should have stole one for this job, but his are actually they're shaped like this, but they're like a clamshell. They're not cut open like this. They're solid. They're a full round tube, and then they're split, and it actually opens up so that you don't got to dig shit out. It just falls out. So we're gonna pull a few from up here. I think I'm gonna hop on the four-wheeler here. I need to get this poor girl power washed. Get it power washed, and I got a service kit sitting at home for it. I need to change the oil and the air filter and yada yada yada. Screwed up. I should have brought a screwdriver. Actually, you know what? I think I got a screwdriver in my truck. And I still got my tools in there. That would make this a lot easier. I think we're gonna run back to the truck. Okay, I didn't have a screwdriver, but I had a drift. Wouldn't be such a big deal if we hadn't got 6/10 of rain last night, which, don't get me wrong, we needed the rain. But unlike the last couple rains we got, this 6/10 came in about 20 minutes. And we got lucky. We only got rain and a little bit of thunder and lightning. You go a little north of here and east of here, they got straight line winds, damaging hail, one of the farms that we soil sample and scout for actually just called my boss earlier today in a field that I had actually just soil sampled probably been about 3 weeks ago now. They had corn planted on it, and they got it planted not too long after I sampled it, so it had plenty of time to grow. I mean, it was taller than what this field we're in right now. They got hail on it, and the corn basically disappeared. still, it should have been young enough, because with corn, up until about the growth stage of E6, which is the 6th true leaf out of the ground, your growing point is actually still inside the ground. Basically on a corn plant, like this plant right here, that's the thumb leaf, so that doesn't count. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. So that corn plant right there is V4. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 true leaves. This leaf hasn't unfurled yet, so that doesn't count. So you'd have to have this leaf out, and then this leaf here that's still in the furl, that leaf out fully like this before your growing point of the plant is actually outside of the ground. So if you get hail damage to the point where it shreds this plant and lays it flat on the ground, it can still recover because the growing point is still protected, but you've already lost yield because you've lost all your photosynthetic productivity. So it's basically any photosynthesis that it's doing, or is still capable of doing at that point, is just to get the plant back up out of the ground. So, and that field was, I think, well, it's actually more than one field, but it's basically 2 blocks. So there's like 1,200 acres there. Some of it was beans, so the beans probably took it a little better, although they still probably got damaged. So yeah, they're sweating right now. My boss Brian was gonna swing. He was coming back to the field up into Compton, Michigan. And he had to drive right past that place, so he said he was gonna stop on his way back through and see just how bad it is. So I'll know more in the morning. So this right here is all muck, like the muck I farm, like the muck from here down along in there. So I'm not gonna soil sample that, because when we're sampling like this, you want a good representation of the majority soil type in the field, and that's a minority soil type. Basically, it's just these end rows. It's obviously still displaying signs of some sort of deficiency caused by the fact that it's a wet spot, but we'll be able to get a good enough understanding of what's going on overall nutritionally in this field if we just skip that and I sample this high ground here, because this high ground here is all clay, or a clay loam like what that front part is. So we're not sampling this part because it's not a good representation of the soil type in the field. This is basically, you got multiple ways you can soil sample, and I've explained this before, but it's been a while since we did a soil sampling video. So you can do the way I would normally sample, which is, and actually this field I would probably do 2 samples anyway, but what I would do is make this field a field, and then the 2 front fields I would make a field, just because of the way they're split up. If this was all one field, I would have sampled it as all one field, just because I don't variable rate fertilizer, have no way of doing it, have no way of GPSing to make maps to even start the variable rate. So you can just sample it all as one field. within reason. Like if you got a 20-acre piece, you can get a decent enough understanding if you just sample this one field. If you got a 100-acre piece, you probably ought to break it up into 3 or 4 pieces. But that being said, on a 100-acre piece, let's say you broke it up into 4 25-acre quarters, that's still reasonable enough that you could say, okay, I'm going to set, if you had to apply different rates of whatever product you need to spread, you can set the spreader up, spread a 25-acre corner, make your change, go spread another 25 acre. That's reasonable. You split a 20-acre section up into 4 or 5-acre sections, then it's kind of stupid to set the spreader up for, you get what I'm saying. So you can sample that way. You can grid sample, which is, and the standard grid size is 2.5 acres. You can go bigger or smaller depending on your practices, but standard is a 2.5 acre grid, and you literally just make a map of this field and you make it up into a bunch of 2.5 acre squares, not odd shapes, just squares. And then no matter what soil type you got in that square, you just pull X amount of cores from that square, and that's your soil sample for that square. So that's the second way you can do it. You can do it is like what I'm doing here, where I've got 2 different soil types making this field up, so I'm making two samples, 1 for each soil type. Technically 3 because that muck, but that muck is such a small piece that it doesn't really make sense to make it its own sample. Okay, so there's one sample. I've actually got probably a little too much in there, but I will. I had to come back, retrace my steps, because I had these bags tucked back here underneath the back seat, and apparently they wiggled their way out, but they were both laying up here in the corner. Somehow I managed to find them. So that is the clay. So now we're going to sand. Do is buy a side-by-side. I wouldn't buy a new one, but I'd like to find a decent used one. Although decent used and side-by-side generally don't go together. I'm torn between the Polaris Ranger and a John Deere Gator. I know, John Deere, fuck. Well, my buddy had an 825i, and I love the hell out of that thing. They both got their pros and their cons. The biggest thing going for the Gator is the John Deere dealership is a lot closer than any Polaris dealership we got around here. But if I got like an 825i or something like that, which is what I'd be looking at, those are only 2-seaters. They govern out at about 45 miles an hour, so which, I mean, in a side-by-side, that's plenty quick. But they have really good towing capacity. They got really good hauling capacity for their size. I think slightly better than better in both cases than a comparable Polaris Ranger. But if I got a Ranger that size, it'd be a 3-seater. They go faster. Dealer's going to be further away. I don't, like I say, I don't think, I haven't compared them apples to apples, but I don't think the Ranger has the same towing capacity or hauling capacity. I think it's a little less. Plus, I just think the Gators look really sharp when you get them not plain Janier with the steel wheels. I think they look really good with them yellow painted or the yellow inlaid aluminum rims, and I think the Gators are sharp, not gonna lie. I definitely would like to get a side-by-side, especially now that Shelly's around, and Teeter likes riding, or I've had Teeter in my buddy's Ranger and stuff, and she really likes riding. I have had her riding on this. She'll sit on the back seat behind me and ride, but side-by-side's a little more handy for stuff like that. Close enough to work that, in all honesty, like this time of year, if I had a side-by-side, I'd drive that thing to work, keep my truck off the road. I'd drive it to mom and dad's and stuff. I'd have no problem doing that. Put an SMB sign on and say you're checking fields, call it good. they got them now. They come with turn signals and crap like that right from the factory, so why not? Okay, so there's that. So now we got 2 plant tissue samples, 2 soil samples. That ought to give us a pretty good idea of what's going on in this field. Like I say, the soil samples need it done anyhow. That way we know what we're dealing with. And the tissue samples are just, even if it comes out of it, and in all honesty, I really just want to know if I'm right about it being a potassium deficiency. I'm kind of more curious than anything. So I had guys say in the comments, oh, it's water stress. Well, what the fuck is water stress? If you put water stress on a scouting report, they're gonna look at you and go, what the fuck is that? The only damage caused by water is drowning out the corn and flat, killing it. There's no such thing as water stress. There is stress that stems from being in a wet hole like down there, but it's a nutrient deficiency caused by water. It's not water stress. So there's no such thing as water stress. For the guys that said that, that's not a thing. There's no such thing. There's nutrient deficiencies. What's that? Okay, just making sure it wasn't a nail. There's nutrient deficiencies caused by water, because in saturated soils, most plant nutrients become highly, what's the word I'm looking for here? Highly unavailable to the plant. That's the word I'm looking for. Unavailable. Especially nitrogen. So like, let's just say, obviously that's not a drowned out spot. There's corn growing in it. But if that's a spot where, say, the corn's going to have wet feet the entire year, that spot may need to be treated differently than the rest of the field to keep the corn healthy because of the water. So like, if it's going to be prone to being a potassium deficient area, we got to throw a little bit more potash in that corner to make up for it. So yeah, there's water there. Water's not what's hurting the corn per se. It's what's the water is the catalyst. Water's not the reaction. I don't think that's a good way to put that, but that's, you get where you try to, if you pick it up what I'm putting down, hopefully here. So anyway, I'm gonna go load up, and then we might swing by a couple fields and see how we're looking as far as herbicide action goes. Well, I'll be damned, we're getting a kill on this ragweed a lot faster than I thought we'd see. A lot faster. That makes me happy. Look at that. Die, you cocksuckers. This field is going to get sprayed again. We're not playing that game this year. I got to get beans sprayed. I wish I could be doing it today, but it's too freaking hot. Herbicides, not all of them. There are some of them that their reactivity improves with heat and humidity. Although, what the hell is that? Fence staple. See, must be about a 15-inch, 20-inch row that before I knew that my markers were off. After this field, I got better, but didn't notice it till I got done with this field. Anyway, there are some herbicides where reactivity improves with heat and humidity. There are also some herbicides that the reactivity greatly improves with heat and humidity to the point where you spray it on this field and it's going to end up on a field 5 miles away. Dicamba, that's one of them. I'm not even sure. I know a lot of the southern states have outlawed dicamba. I'm not sure. Huh. Anybody want to play a game of horseshoes? I've never sprayed it. I don't know anybody up here that sprays it anymore. I don't know if it's outlawed up here or not, or guys just don't spray it. But like Enlist came out. Son of a bitch, we're finding all sorts of fun stuff today. Broken electric insulator, too bad the top's not still on it. Enlist is supposed to be basically a better, more controllable form of dicamba, but Enlist, it's a premix. It's got more shit in it, but dicamba is one of those things. But it's supposed to be a different formulation of it that's not supposed to be as volatile and not supposed to carry as much heat and humidity. And with that being said, you still get hot and humid like this. It still makes it, Enlist can even move a little bit more than what you want it to. So I just assume not spray when it's this hot. Plus, when it's this hot outside, plants are not going to be actively growing during the day, because it doesn't matter what plant it doesn't matter if it's a grass, doesn't matter if it's doesn't matter if it's a monocot, dicot, whatever. Obviously monocot, grass, dicot, going to be a broadleaf. Mono meaning one cotyledon, dicot meaning two cotyledons. Where was I going? What's that? Hold on, I squirreled here. Huh. Anybody need a... Huh. There used to be a house here, that's why all this shit's here. Where was I going? Oh yeah. All plants have a structure on them called a stomata. It's generally found on the underside of the leaves. Or a stoma, sorry, not a stomata, a stoma. And basically, if you look at it under a microscope, it looks like a little mouth. And the plants open and close those to control respiration. And when it's this hot out, plants will close those stoma up to slow down respiration to conserve water. And then during the night, when it's cooler out, they'll open them back up, and that's when they resume their respiration, and so on and so forth. So you get a hot, humid day like this, it closes those stoma up, and you don't get as good of a plant uptake of the herbicide you spray. Even though they're, say, on the underside of the leaf, those play kind of an important role. So between reduced herbicide activity, fear of herbicide movement, or off-site herbicide movement due to heat and humidity, and there's just, it gets this hot out, unless you absolutely have to spray, because don't get me wrong, there weren't many guys spraying today because it was pretty damn wet. It's actually, it has dried off a bunch today, but up until about 1-2 o'clock, you weren't going to get a piece of equipment over any fields around here just because it was too tacky on top. So like the big guys that have a shit ton of acres to try to cover, they're spraying, not because they want to, but because they have to. The guy that I was scouting corn and beans all day today, and that guy farms 14,000 acres. And it's really weird. That guy, he comes from a farming family. He's older. He's probably older than my dad by a little bit. I'd put him mid 60s. Comes from a large farming family, been farming his whole life. Like I say, farms 14,000 acres, mixed crops, fruits, vegetables. Very, very diverse operation, very well run, well put together operation. That guy is the most skittish, nervous Nelly. Like, he's gonna give himself coronary, I swear to God. But I was scouting, I like beans. He drives past the bean field, which to me looks perfect, and he's like, oh, I need those stand counted. And I'm stand counting them, and on his irrigated beans, he's at between 100, or they were dropping, I think he said their target was 115,000 underneath the pivot, and then the dry corners, they'd bump it up to between 130 and 140,000 by prescription. And I'd go out there and I'd stand count it, and everything would come out dead nuts where it belongs. I mean, you'd naturally, because they're beans, you'd have some thin spots in the low areas, and the spots that worked up a little chunky, you'd have some thin spots. But for the most part, beautiful stand of beans. Not a weed in them, because they went there. They did a post with Zidua Pro, or a pre-emerge with Zidua Pro, and that stuff is awesome. If I had better timing and could squeeze more shit into a 24-hour day, that's what I'd be spraying pre-emerge on my beans. But I can only do so many things at once. I mean, the cleanest bean fields I have ever seen are I mean, this guy has got his shit wired tight, but he's a nervous Nelly. He's like, well, it looks kind of thin. Do you think I should be out there replanting or anything like that? Or like, what do you think? And I'm like, kind of sitting there feeling like Ricky Bobby, like I don't know what to do with my hands, because it's like, dude, you're like 3 times my age and farming 14,000 acres, and I'm just little old me here farming a postage stamp, and you're asking for my opinion? I think it should be the other way around. But anyhow, I asked him if they were going to keep spraying. He said, I really don't want to because of this heat, but he said, we really just got rolling on our post-emergence application, and we've got 13,000 acres to cover. So we said, I really don't have a choice. And it's a fair point, but I don't have that many acres to cover. In all honesty, if I had 3 good days in a row, I could cover the rest of my beans easy. I could probably do it in 2 if I pushed hard and didn't have to, or could start before noon if the dew burned off. Piece of aluminum. So that's why I'm not spraying beans. Should be able to go on Friday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're back down into the upper 70s, low 80s with lower humidity. So we'll hit it hard Friday and should be able to knock out everything that's up out of the ground. The other reason I'm not spraying right now is to add to that stuff. You are more likely when a, like say soybean, you are more likely when a soybean plant is tire iron. There's all sorts of shit out here. When a soybean plant is heat stressed, you are more likely to get herbicide injury on the plant you're trying to clean up, or clean the weeds out of the beans. So with that being said, generally, I mean, it's not uncommon to have it. It's not uncommon to burn your crop with your herbicide. I mean, it happens for different reasons, but normally it doesn't take a lot for them to snap back out of it. Usually 1 or half inch of rain will bring them back out like that. But we're in a situation here where we got 3 days of heat, and then it does cool down, but we don't really have any rain in the forecast for the next week. So if you accidentally burn those beans in this heat, the best thing to snap them back out of it would be water. Well, now they're heat stressed, they're herbicide stressed, they're waiting on water, they're not going to get it. So every day that you're not getting that water, and every day those beans are trying to recover on their own, which they will, but it'll just take longer, you're losing yield. So yes, if you got weeds in your beans, you need to get them sprayed, but you're going to lose a lot less yield if you just let the weeds go for a couple days and wait for more ideal spray conditions than you were if you were to go on it right now, accidentally burn your beans, and then your beans can't come out of it because they ain't going to get no rain. So sorry, this video is getting really, I didn't intend to go into all this, but it's a good talking point. I realize that's not why anybody comes here. They come here for the tractors, but this is how this is farming. It's not always about driving equipment, although that's the best part. But there's a lot of leg work and background work involved to make things go as planned, and I'm trying to get better. What the hell is this? That's what I'm trying to get better at, which I've said it numerous times since I switched jobs. This new job is cool because I get to see a lot of different size farms, guys trying a lot of different farming practices, no-till, conventional till, organic, cover crop. I've seen so I can see pros, cons, goods, bads, what works, what doesn't. I mean, I've seen things that I'm like, that's kind of neat, and I kind of want to try it on this farm, on some of my stuff. Like a bigger guy that we were talking to, actually one of the guys my boss went to college with. He's a 100% organic, 100% full width tillage, and they try to cover crop most everything. And they have to be full width tillage because it's not just row crops they're farming organic. They got fruits and vegetables and whatnot, and to keep a lot of volunteer stuff out, the only choice they have is to be full width tillage, which is why they're like that. And then the cover cropping is to help build soil health, mostly because they farm a lot of sand ground. So he's trying to up his organic matter with the cover cropping. Well, one of the things we sat down and talked to him with, and it was earlier this spring, back before anybody got rolling. I think there was still some snow melting off the ground, but he was looking at buying a drone for spraying and fertilizer application. And one of the things he was talking about doing was coming in probably when the corn's about this tall or a little taller with that drone and spreading cover crop in it, so that by the time the corn is, you know, yay high and canopied out and you're losing sunlight at the ground level, your cover crop is already established. And when you go to take the corn off and it gets sunlight again, it goes batshit and you get a good green layer over it. For a cover crop, and then you're not fighting trying to come in following the combine and get a cover crop drilled in or worked in. Or I think they got seeders on their VT tools or something, if I remember right. It's been a minute, but so he was talking about that, and I'm like, that's not a bad idea. And you know, people think of that as, oh, this is some sort of new thing. Well, if you think about it, most of that stuff is like older than even modern agricultural practices. Like, you think about it, when the Indians taught the Pilgrims how to grow corn, they had the three sisters. They had corn, what were they? Corn, beans, and what was the other one? Damn it, what was the other one? They called them the three sisters because the corn provided a stalk for the bean to grow up, and then the bean provided nitrogen for the corn to grow. They didn't know what it was providing at that time. They just knew that it helped the corn to grow. What was the other one? Damn it, I can't remember now. But anyway, there was three crops, and basically the third crop provided ground cover. It was going to be a food stuff, but it also provided ground cover to keep the weeds out. So, I mean, we're looking at this in the modern day going, oh, hey, that's the new upcoming thing. Now, farmers have known about shit like that for years. But when the chemical revolution came on back in the late 80s, early 90s, shit like that went away because, oh, all of a sudden, we can just spray it and kill it and not have to worry about ground cover or anything like that. Cover cropping. That's been a thing for years. Guys were doing that back in the 20s, 30s, 40s. It's just not the way we think of it today. They'd have a hay field, run hay for 4 or 5 years, rotate it out, take one of the row crop fields, put it into hay, rotate it out, and just keep doing that. So that's not like they were necessarily cover cropping behind a row crop, but they were cover cropping in a sense that they were taking a field out of a row crop rotation, putting permanent cover on it for a few years to build soil health, and then putting a row crop back on it. So, I mean, none of this stuff that these guys are trying to do now is anything new. Regenerative ag, that's nothing new. Shit like that, guys have been doing for years. It's just now it's got a new buzzword name to it. So, anyway, sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk that much. This kind of shit intrigues me. So anyway, yeah, this was the main thing I wanted to check, was to see if this ragweed was dying, and oh boy, it's dying. So, but what I started to say before we went on our herbicide thing was I gotta get all my beans sprayed, and then I got to switch back to corn. I'm gonna dose this field again just to make double damn sure we get enough atrazine on it to keep any more ragweed from coming through. And then I got to go down, most likely the muck is going to have to get a second full application as well, just because that's the way it is. And the muck is also going to need, I got a manganese supplement to put on it, but I didn't put it on in my first application because I didn't feel like there was enough vegetative growth in the corn, and you were going to be spraying most of it onto the dirt. So I wanted to get the corn, I want to see the corn about yay high when we go to put that manganese on. That way most of it's ending up on the plant, not on the dirt, because manganese is best taken up foliarly. So anyhow, sorry for being all sciencey and not really showing any equipment today. I know these videos generally don't get the views that the other ones do, but this kind of stuff is just as important as running the equipment, because this is how you grow a crop. This is what makes the money, so that we can continue to buy cool dumb shit and things like that. So anyhow, I guess now that I've talked your ear off to the point where half of you have left, that's it for this one, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.